Hey, sorry I'm gone again, but I'm just going to finish up the second part of the notes for you so you can get that information on your note sheet. If you did not watch the first part of the note sheet, I want you to make sure you do that first and foremost because I'm not here to explain those to you, so I think it's really, really important that you watch these notes. Now, again, dividing rational expressions isn't that different than multiplying rational expressions. So actually what we're going to do for each of these is we're going to factor and we're going to flip fractions. So the first thing I want to do is factor. Now remember when I've talked about these kind of problems, I said when in doubt, just factor everything. Factor as much as you can. So for this first one, you're multiplying to 2 and adding to 3. So that's going to give you 2 and 1. So I'm going to write that out in factored form. I have x plus 2 and x plus 1. And on the bottom, I have 4. Now, this division sign tells me I need to flip the second fraction. So I'm going to write this as x plus 1 over x plus 2. Now, all of this is technically being multiplied. Because it's being multiplied, that means I can cross off overlapping factors. Apparently, you need to get to class because the bell is ringing. Okay, so we can cross off those overlapping factors. So then on top, we're left with x plus 1 times x plus 1, and we're going to write that over 4. All right, now these directions don't say to state the excluded value, but again, on an assessment, I would expect you to do that. So if you want to just kind of get in that habit, I might suggest that. All right, let's take a look at number 8. So for number 8, that factoring that first one, you need to use differences of squares. Now remember, differences of squares, you're going to put a plus and a minus in each, square root of the first term in the first spot, and a square root of the second term in the second spot. And that's being divided by 5x. So now I'm going to take this second fraction and I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to flip that fraction. So now I want to cancel some stuff out. Well, this x is going to cancel out this x. Nothing can cancel out the 5. Because these are technically being multiplied, I can cross off, oops, the x minus 2. So left on top then, I'm going to have x plus 2. And on the bottom, I'm going to have 5. So this right here is fully simplified. Next, let's take a look at number 9 and number 10. So again, when in doubt, factor everything. I need to factor this, and I also am going to want to take out a GCF out of that. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm rewriting it, I'm going to flip the fractions. So I have m plus 3 on top. And then on the bottom, when I factor that bottom, it's going to be m plus 2 times m plus 2. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about how to factor. We've been over that a lot this trimester. I kind of want you guys to kind of be getting there and doing that, you know, without me having to talk you through it. All right, so I'm going to take a GCF out of this guy. I can take a 2 out of each term, and when I do that, I'm actually going to flip it to the bottom. And the reason why I flip it to the bottom is because of this division symbol. I want to flip only that second fraction when I do that. So next, I'm going to go and cancel out overlapping factors. Well, even though there are no parentheses, these two factors are technically being multiplied. So I can cancel those out, and I can cancel those out. So what you're going to notice here is that your top completely cancels. That doesn't mean that your bottom is going to become the top, okay? That means we're just going to put a 1 in place of the top. So you're going to have a 1 on top, and then on the bottom, 2 times m plus 2. And this is your fully simplified rational expression. Let's take a look at number 10. So for number 10, we want to factor this. Now, eventually I'm going to be using differences of squares. But before I can do that, I need to factor out a 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3, and I'm left with x squared minus 4. On the bottom, I'm going to have x minus 6. And then divided. Now, because I'm dividing it, I'm going to flip it. So on top, I'm going to put x plus 4. On the bottom, I'm going to put x minus 6. Bottom, I'm going to put x minus 6 times x minus 2. Now, before I can simplify this any further, I need to factor the top. So there's a 3 on top, and then we want to factor this. So we're going to do 2 parentheses, plus in the middle, minus in the middle, square root of the first term, square root of the second term. And then we're going to write that factor. So all of that's being multiplied. Then, even though there's no parentheses, that factor on the bottom is also being multiplied. So we're going to write all of this out. And now we want to start canceling some things off. So we want to cancel those. And that's all we can actually cancel. So left on top, I have 3 times x plus 2 times x plus 4. And that's going to be divided by x minus 6 times x minus 6. Now for right now, because we're still learning this, I'm not going to require you guys to go through and actually multiply these guys out. Okay, so this is a good enough of a final answer for me. Just make sure you're canceling out those leftover factors. Next, let's take a look at number 11. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to factor things. Factoring is a very, very, very important skill for what we're doing here today. So between 2x plus 4, we can take out a 2. And then we're left with x plus 2. On the bottom, we want to factor this. So we want to think what multiplies to 18 and adds to 11. Well, that's going to be x plus 9 and x plus 2. Now, I'm going to rewrite this fraction flipped over. So I'm going to write it as multiplying. So I'm going to take x squared plus 5x plus 6, and I'm going to factor that on top. So I have x plus 2, x plus 3, and I'm going to flip to the bottom, x plus 1. Now, even though there were no parentheses around it, I like to draw in those parentheses. So remember that everything there is being multiplied. So because everything's being multiplied, we can go through and cancel out our values. So we can cancel this out. Okay, and so then we're left with 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 3 on top. And then on the bottom, we're left with x plus 9 times x plus 1. And none of those factors can be canceled out. So this right here is your final answer. Again, I'm not going to require you guys to multiply those out right now. So let's take a look at number 12. So for number 12, it looks really intimidating, but all you're really doing is just factoring, 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 factoring. Okay, so let's factor that first one. So we're multiplying the negative 2 and adding to 1. So I'm going to do that as x plus 2, x minus 1. That should look like a minus 1. X minus 1, there we go. And on the bottom, multiplying to 6 and adding to 5, x plus 3, x plus 2. Now, I'm going to change this to multiplying, and I'm going to flip those two over. So I'm going to factor the bottom and put that on top. So multiplying to 12 and adding to 7 is x plus 3 times x plus 4. And I'm just going to write it all over as one fraction because I'm multiplying them all together anyways. So on the bottom, it's now going to be what was on the top. So we have x minus 3x plus 2. So we're multiplying to 3, so we're going to do x plus 3 and x minus 1. Now I have it all written out, so I just have to start canceling out factors. I can cancel out minus 1, cancel out 3, and I can cancel out 2. So left on top, I have x plus 4, and left on the bottom, I have x plus 3. So this right here is your final answer. Now let's take a look at some of these word problems. So in April of 2001, NASA launched the Mars Odyssey spacecraft. It took 200 days for the spacecraft to travel 466 million miles from Earth to Mars. What is the average speed in miles per hour? Round to the nearest miles per hour. So really, this is just solving equations. When you've been doing some of these equation solving, whenever you have miles per hour, where you have that kind of the two labels that are being divided, you're actually using rational expressions and you didn't know it. So we're going to take r times 200 and set that equal to 466 million. So all I'm going to do is solve this equation for r. So divide both sides by 200, and I get that r is equal to 330,000, and then that's going to be miles per hour. So that label miles per hour actually creates a rational expression. So this is really just plugging numbers into a formula. Okay, so don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Let's take a look at number 3. So number 3 says the rover Opportunity was launched in 2003. So it launched on Mars January 5th, 2014, assuming that the Opportunity traveled the same distance as the Mars Odyssey spacecraft. So it traveled this distance. So the only thing different that we have to figure out on this one is how much time passed between July 2003 and January 25th, 2004. Okay, so you have to kind of count the days. So figure out how many days until the end of July. So while there's 31 days in July, minus 7, okay, so 24 days in July. Then plus 30 days for August, plus 31 days for September. No, August has 31 days. Can't remember. Figure it out. Just kidding. Okay, so if you were to go through and calculate all of those out, if you were adding all the days, so 24 days for July, then, so there's 24 days left in July, plus 31 days for August, plus 30 days for September, plus 31 days for October, plus 30 days for November, plus 31 days for December, and then we have 25 days in that January of 2004. So if you add all of that up, you end up getting 201 days. So it took them 201 days. So now we're going to set that into the same equation. So we're going to have R times 201 is equal to 466 million. Solve that for R, and then you get 2318407.96. Put commas in there because we're good math students. And we also want to put a label, miles per hour. Okay, so I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. Why don't you go ahead and once you have this done, get your homework for the day, or you may do it on your iPad. Okay, make sure you're checking the key if you have questions, and we'll definitely talk about this one tomorrow. Thanks for listening.